Hello, and welcome to Empowered the Podcast. My name is Linda, and I am your host. I am an empowerment coach, a spirit junkie, a realtor, a proud mom, and a dog mom. I'm also an animal advocate, a child advocate, and someone that overcame a lot of challenges and trauma in my life. This podcast is packed with powerful content, inspiring conversations with amazing guests who will help you heal, grow, and evolve into a better version of you so you can attract in your best and most empowered life. I don't know about you, but I'm not here for mediocrity. I'm here for an abundant, blessed life. Life does not have to be so hard. That is an old program. We can do less and attract more, and I know this to be true. I love bringing you this powerful information. I hope you enjoy, learn, and grow. Have a beautiful day. Good morning, and welcome back to Empowered the Podcast. I am Linda Brand. I am your host, and I am so glad you're here. Today, I have a special guest, an amazing woman. She's 77 years old. She has dedicated over 50 years of her life to community service. She is a speaker, an author. She also was honored as CNN Hero in July of 2012. She has personally worked with over 2,200 survivors of domestic violence, which she calls intimate terrorism. She is an incredible woman with an incredible story, and her book is called It Takes a Woman to Empower Women, a Survivor's Guide to Creating the Life of Her Dreams. She has two amazing stories that she's going to share with us and how this all began for her, and I'm so excited to welcome Johanna. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here, and I want to hear all about your journey and where it all began for you and why you wrote the book, It Takes a Woman to Empower Women, a Survivor's Guide to Creating the Life of Her Dreams. We are all survivors.
Thank you so much for having me, Linda, and I'm so excited because your mission has been my mission for more than 20 years, to empower women to create the lives that they want and deserve. So it's very exciting for me to be here with you today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I know it's such a powerful mission. I mean, I just was listening to another podcast today, and it's the programs that us as women have since childhood is just really needs to change so that women can feel more powerful and not afraid to show up and be their best selves. And, we've been programmed since little girls that we are limited. So
Right.
I'd love to hear where this began, though. It sounds like you've gone through a lot of things that led you where you are today. So if you'd like to share back to the beginning of your life.
Well, we don't need to go back 77 years, but we'll go back a little ways.
Okay. Wherever you begin would be fine.
I think everyone in the domestic violence field, which, oh, by the way, now I have come to call intimate terrorism, which I think is a much fitter description, because it actually is acute fear of being harmed by someone that we are intimate with.
Yeah.
So domestic violence,
that's broad.
The phrase decreases what it really is. So anyway, I've been involved with survivors, never call them victims because they're not. They take responsibility for their lives. I've been working in the field since 2002. And in 2004, working at a wonderful shelter in Cambridge, a crisis shelter, a woman called and wanted a bed for herself and her two kids. And I was in the volunteer office and on the crisis hotline at the time. So I took the interview with her. I couldn't give her permission because I was just a volunteer. But anyway, went to the director and we got her accepted. And I went to pick her up at an undisclosed location because I couldn't give her the address of the shelter because it's secret. And I picked her and her two kids up on a main street in Cambridge with a black plastic trash bag with all their possessions in it. And they had just literally gotten off a bus from Chicago. So I took them to the shelter and I got them settled into the room and went back up to the crisis office where I was still on duty for the phone. And she came up a little while later and she said, "Can you help me?" And I said, "I don't know." So I closed the door and she said, "When I left Chicago, I left so fast that I don't have our birth certificates or my driver's license. I have no means of identification." And, we have women in crisis all the time at the shelter, but never with no identification. So I said, "What does it take to get what you need?" And she said, "Well, I need $40 to write to City Hall in Chicago." Excuse me. And I don't have any cash. I spent everything on our bus tickets. And she literally had gone to the bus station in Chicago and said, "How far can I get on this money?" And that's what they said. So I said, "Let me think about this." So she went back downstairs, and it's totally, totally forbidden for a volunteer to give a resident money. But I have to admit, I've never been good with rules. Even when I was 5, I wasn't. So this kind of fit my pattern perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I never have cash in my wallet because if I do, it disappears and I have no idea where it went. That day, I had 3 $20 bills in my wallet. So as I was leaving for the afternoon, I went downstairs and I got her into a corner. And I gave her the 2 $20 bills and I said, "Send this to Chicago." But of course, she needed money orders and stamps and envelopes. So I gave her the other 20 and I said, "Take care of the rest and take your kids to McDonald's for a treat." Now, 20 years later, that probably would not have been a good idea to take your kids to McDonald's. But anyway, I thought it was a good idea. So I'm driving home in a very nice car to a very nice house. And I'm thinking, I just changed a life for $40. And I did.
Yeah.
So I knew I had to do something in a bigger way, but I didn't have a clue what I would do. And I had always been a for-profit kind of girl. My background is finance and management. So I said, I have to start a nonprofit. I don't know how to do it, but anyway, so long story short, within a year of that, Harvard Law School and the largest law firm in Boston had done all my legal work for me for free because they believed in what I was doing. And I started raising money. And my mission was to give monetary grants to women who had been out of the abuse for 6 months and ready to make a new start, a monetary grant for the first step. And all I could do was afford the first step. But basically, we changed 2,200 lives. Each one of those women had 2.3 children, so that was a lot of lives. And each one of those women had to pay it forward to 3 other survivors. So we touched a lot of lives and changed. One woman, I gave $1,000 to create a food cart, just a cart. She now owns 3 restaurants in Chicago.
Oh my God.
That is the power of $1,000. I gave another woman who didn't speak English a sewing machine, and now she owns the building where her tailor shop is.
Oh my goodness. I love this stuff. Oh my gosh, Johanna.
And it's also, Linda, and I'm sure you've realized this too, it's not just the monetary grant. And I'll tell you how we dream and did the life plan in a second, but it's one person believing in you and believing in that you deserve the best and have the power to create it. And I call that, crazy as it sounds, a belief buddy. And we all need at least one belief buddy. And I was that belief buddy to 2,200 women.
Mm.
And I wrote the book, by the way, because I retired when I was 70 because I figured if I didn't retire, I'd die in the chair. But anyway, I wrote the book to be able to continue that belief. But unfortunately, I can't give the money to go with it. But I hope the book will inspire and empower women instead.
I love so many things you said. Oh my goodness. The belief thing, and also just choosing the words, the powerful words like survivor versus victims, and stating that these women were not victims, that they chose and created their realities, and you helped them, and they obviously took action for themselves. That's how they came to you first, right? They took an action to stop this
I'll
suffering.
tell you how it worked. Because I made the rule to start with that the women had to be out of the relationship for at least 6 months, because the trauma and the emotional whatever that goes with it does not allow you to do anything about your future till you're stable. So I needed to work with domestic violence advocates because they're the ones that work directly with the survivors. So, of course, I had to train them in what I did. And we ended up, as you said, not just Boston, but Chicago, and then 26 states. So there were hundreds and hundreds of advocates and agencies that I worked with all over the country. But they needed to vet the individual survivor to know that she was ready to make the plan.
Absolutely.
So oftentimes, survivors Google where to find funds, and they're very smart. So a lot of them found the name of my organization was Web of Benefit because it was a web of women helping women. But they would find, Web of Benefit, blah, blah, blah. And then the advocate would call me. So I had to train the advocate first, but then I would do the interview, either go to the agency in Boston or Chicago, or by Zoom didn't exist back then, but we did Skype. So it would be the advocate and the survivor speaking with me.
Mm-hmm.
And we still did the whole interview with the dreams. And I never gave the funds directly to the woman. It would go to the man who owned the sewing machine or the person that was going to create the food cart. So they didn't get cash in hand because I didn't, we did probably 600 or 700 laptops. We did housing grants, we did educational grants, but they basically designed the grant themselves for exactly what they wanted for that first step. So that in itself was so empowering.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
And really fun for me. Really fun.
I love that. I love the just everything you're saying, like that you had this 6-month rule. That was brilliant because when you're still in you could go back. I mean, there's just so much.
I couldn't make any mistakes. Although I must say, by the time Web of Benefit ran for 12 years, that's when I did the 2,200 grants, I raised over $1.5 million, basically all by myself. Wow. And I have to tell you, it is my belief that every woman has the power and deserves the best, but everything good starts from the bottom and works up one step at a time. It doesn't start from the top down. That trickle down is nuts. But one person can do way more than they think they can do. Fundraising is horrible. I hated every minute of it, but it had to be done to have the money to do what I wanted to do. So it's amazing what you can do one baby step at a time.
It is amazing. And it's just like the belief thing. I want to go back to that because you believed in these women and they probably had worthiness issues from being in these toxic, intimate terrorism situations. And so how did you work with their mindsets? Like share some of that with the belief
Well,
buddy.
you're absolutely right about the worthiness. And of course, mind you, yes, I had welcomed women into the shelter as a, crisis advocate, but I had really never sat down and talked to them about their wishes and their dreams and their needs, because they were in the crisis mode when I was working with them in the shelter. So ultimately, I left the shelter because then I ran the nonprofit full time, which was more than full time. But you hit the nail on the head when you talked about worthiness. And I knew that I would be working with self-esteem issues because of the abuse. And it's always a survivor's fault. It's never the abuser's fault. So the gaslighting, survivor believes it is always their fault.
Oh, that this
and they've been conditioned to that.
Oh, got it. Yes.
Through gaslighting,
Yeah.
manipulation, and the abuser never takes responsibility. I believe that abuse is on a spectrum, like so many things. So at the low end of the spectrum, you have microaggressions, you have gaslighting, which is, making you feel crazy by somebody lying to you. And when you know the truth, all the way out to homicide.
Right.
So every single woman on the planet is somewhere on that spectrum.
Yeah.
And the deal is, we are all born into a patriarchy in this country. So the minute we're born as females, we are less than. And we are consciously, subconsciously, unconsciously taught that we are less than.
Yeah.
And then, oh, by the way, add what I call all the isms, the sexism and the racism and the anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
And now they're taking rights away from our bodies. So everybody every woman has had their self-esteem and their worthiness injured, if not completely destroyed at some level. So we start at the top, and I thought it was self-esteem. And as you hit the nail on the head, the next is worthiness, which I thought was the bottom. But after so many years, it finally dawned on me the big foundation for all of our feelings is shame and guilt for things known and unknown.
Yeah.
So we have to work on self-esteem. We have to work on worthiness. But the first thing we need to do, Linda, and I believe this so strongly, and if there's one thing that comes from this podcast today, this is my message. We have to grant ourselves self-forgiveness. And I don't mean self-forgiveness from, oh, I said something nasty to my neighbor yesterday. I mean self-forgiveness for everything that has ever happened to us in our lives.
Yeah.
Just blanket self-forgiveness. Self-forgiveness is a birthright. And if we can grant ourselves self-forgiveness and get over our guilt and shame of not being who somebody said we should have been. My mother from a very early age would say to me, "Can't you just be nice?" Well, and I'm sure sometimes I really wasn't nice, but all my life I thought I wasn't a nice person just from those sentences, like from when I was 5.
Right.
So we get this from parents, we get it from teachers, from partners, from bosses, even from friends.
Right.
And we have to understand that's not about us, that's about them.
Yes.
So self-forgiveness is just, please, everyone listening, forgive yourselves. You have nothing to be ashamed of.
I love that. Yeah. No, I was carrying a lot of shame for many, many years personally from experiences that happened to me in my youth because of my upbringing and choices I made being, stupid kid, whatever, not having proper supervision, I mean, there's always worse, but and I have, nothing's what it looks like for one, but I carried around the shame. I changed my whole life 2 years ago, sold my house and relocated across the country. And the growth and healing that's happened here has been gigantic. I've been hiring coaches since 17 and a lot of things and, growing and all that. But this was very significant that's happened to me. And so I'm sure Louise Hay.
Oh, I love Louise.
Yeah. So those books are
Yeah.
powerful books that help. She was like the beginning of this. But yeah, I think a lot of us, you hit the nail on the head with the shame and guilt, because that is what I carried for a long time. And then the worthiness thing is gigantic. And I really think that most of the mental health problems on the planet are from worthiness issues.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah,
I
I feel
agree.
like we all grew up a certain way and we took everything so literally. And as from 0 to 7, we're little sponges and we don't know how to just, we don't know that it's their problem and that
Right.
we think it's our problem. So as soon as you're told, can't you just be nice, or whatever you're told, you are taking that label with you for the rest of your life now,
Right.
even though it's not even true, right? We're
Right.
all God's children. We're all worthy beings just for being alive. And so tell us a little more on how you help these women deal with their shame and guilt, deal with their mindsets. How did you get these women that were to now being entrepreneurs and owning things and building things? And you said belief buddy, and you were the belief buddy, but this is so gigantic. I mean, I've had multiple people on my show that they were a dental hygienist that was struggling a divorce, and she ends up writing a book and becoming a coach and doing all these powerful, beautiful things, which that's very common. I have these beautiful transformational stories here, motivational, but I'm curious how you did it.
Well, I'm going to put a little plug in for my book too. Chapter 4 in the book is going to tell you all about this. But I knew I didn't have money to waste, and I knew my largest grant was going to be $1,000. So how do we get someone who doesn't believe they deserve anything to believe that they deserve, but also that they can do it? And a lot of these women I spoke with 2 and 3 times, but many of them, especially in other states, I had basically 1 hour, maybe an hour and a half with them for the interview. I had the belief that they were ready to think about the future. I knew about the worthiness piece and I knew about the self-esteem piece. I didn't know about the self-forgiveness piece at the time. So anyway, I thought, okay, we have to do a life plan. Well, whenever anybody had ever said to me, you have to do a life plan, it's like, oh my God, I can't do that. You're asking me to tell you about the whole rest of my life? Those words are really scary. So I said, okay, how can I do it? And you'll think I'm crazy, but I would go to bed at night with a problem and I would have the answer in the morning. So it's like, what am I going to call it? I can't call it a life plan. So one morning I woke up and I said, oh, I'm going to call it a dream proposal. And that's what it is.
Mm.
And not only did 2,200 women use it, but that's what I spoke about at Harvard and Simmons. And we did dream proposals everywhere. Plus, the advocates had to do dream proposals. So they changed their lives too. So anyway, the dream proposal is very easy. And if anybody wants to get a pencil and paper, you can. There are 3 questions. They have subheadings. The first question is, what is your biggest dream? The second question is, what are the steps and goals for that dream? And the third question is, what is the first step you will take tomorrow? So, under what is the biggest dream? What is your dream career? What is your dream home? Design it, cut out pictures, do whatever you want, but know what it looks like. What is your dream car? Because I'm a crazy car person.
Mm-hmm. I love cars.
What is dream travel for you? Where do you want to go? What do you want to see? What do you want to learn about? And the fifth, which took me quite a while to come up with, is what will you do for self-care? And self-care is a huge part of the book. There are self-care ideas at the end of each chapter. There are journaling ideas. There are affirmations. So the book is written, so it's part what they call transformational nonfiction. So I'm hoping to help you create a better life, but it's also part journal. So there are spaces for you to write in, and there are some very easy, fun things for you to do at the end of each chapter.
This is amazing. I'm going to
So anyway, let's go back to the dream proposal.
Yes.
We've looked at the 5 dreams, and then what are the steps and goals? So let's think about career first. I worked with a lot of non-English speaking women. So we did this through translation, which made it a little bit more difficult. But the thing that was so great for me was they'd come in and sit down with me one-on-one, and they're like, I don't know this lady. What is she going to do? I'm scared to death. What if she doesn't give me the money that, So anyway, they sit down across from me the way you and I are now. And I say, okay, we're going to have some fun today. And they're like, oh, no, we're not. And they're, very straight faced. And I'm like, yeah, we are. We are. So I hand them the piece of paper that says dream proposals and the 3 questions. They're filling it out. We copy it. I got a copy. They get the original. So anyway, I remember one woman who was from Brazil, and she had a translator, and so highly motivated. She had finished 5th grade, and she wanted to become a doctor in the United States. So what do? That's a really big one, right? Yeah. So we think, okay, you need to take English classes, and then you need to take a GED class. The crisis shelter where she was could handle those 2 things. GED is free, English class is free, GED is free, but she needed a laptop and she needed transportation on the subway to get to her English class. So we did the English transportation, and we did a laptop, and she came back. She had gotten her GED, and we gave her money for application at a community college. And from there, she knew exactly what the steps were. Community college, 4-year college, pre-med, medical school, the whole thing. It's written out to her step by step. So I knew that she had passed the English classes, gotten her GED, and been accepted to community college.
Beautiful.
So that's how that worked. So then,
breaking it down into steps.
Yeah. So what's the first step for tomorrow?
Yeah. I love it. I love the making it fun and the dream. And where did you get all of that? What was is there spirituality in this? Like where you have?
I've been on a spiritual journey for at least 35 years. But I think I had some kind of understanding from my background. I was brought up in a very abusive family. My father was a mean drunk. They were both educated. My mother drank a lot, and I'm talking about the 40s and 50s because that's how old I am. But he was in the house, he was out of the house, he was drunk, he was sober, he was abusive, he was not. It was really intimate terrorism. And then finally, when I was 13, he attempted to murder my mother when my brother and I were in the house. And we got him off of her and out of the house, never to come back again. But that was in 1959. And you need to understand the context because marital rape was legal until 1975. So I remember the police coming to the house and they would say to my mother, fix your marriage. So there was zero help, and there was no help for a survivor or a family of a survivor. If you went to a psychiatrist, you were nuts. You were blacklisted. And my mother was so destroyed. But it took me And we never spoke about it. My brother and my mother and I never once ever mentioned it. Like if we didn't talk about it, it would just go away. And she was a destroyed woman, basically, very withdrawn and quiet and drank more. But I swore to God, I would never be like that, ever, ever. And she did the best she could with the tools she had.
Exactly.
I have so much more compassion now. But
did you have a lot of therapy growing, like dealing with all that?
well, I didn't start therapy till I was an adult, but I was a really angry teenager.
Right. You had
Very
no
angry.
father. You basically had no father. Your mother was not a role model,
Right.
And I can relate with what you're saying. I mean, not the alcoholism, but I've had many guests on with abusive alcoholic parents. And yeah, I mean, you basically, you're a miracle. I mean, so what you've created is so incredible. I'm curious what made you decide to volunteer at the shelter when you did back then? Just curious.
Well, I think it was like a life change. I had been, up until that time, I had been selling, I had started and bought and sold several companies, but at that time I had been selling very expensive real estate in the Boston suburbs, working for a mom and pop company that I totally loved. They were just great. And they sold out to a bigger firm. And I didn't want to do that. So at approximately age 57, I decided, okay, now it's time that I want to do something about domestic violence, intimate terrorism in whatever small way I can. So I went to a local shelter in Newton and talked to them, and they said, well, you can stuff envelopes for fundraisers. And I said, no, I want to work one-on-one with women. So they sent me or suggested I call the shelter in Cambridge. And they had a 40-hour training class for women, 40 hours for women who wanted to volunteer in the shelter. So I took the class, and then I started working there, and I was volunteering 2 days a week. And I thought that would be, what I was going to be doing, until the lady needed the $40, and I drove home, and I think God was saying to me, oh no, you're not done yet. You're just starting. You need to do this in a big way. And I'm like,
yeah.
And I had no idea. I took the first step, and then, trust me, you must know this. Once you take the first step, you're swept along. If you're doing the right thing, you're swept along. The doors that opened to me were like, oh my God. And where I got the idea from the dream proposal, and I have to tell you, my youngest daughter is the one that came up with the pay it forward idea, which was great. But the dream proposal name, it was like,
wow. Can you share?
God-given.
Yeah. Are you?
And I'm not a religious person. I'm a highly spiritual person. I believe in the divine plan. I believe in the universe, but many years of hard work.
I totally feel divine. The fact that you and I are here right now together is so divine, because I was a realtor I've been licensed 30 plus years.
No kidding.
And I'm listening to you, and then just your spiritual guidance and the nudges, and then, everything. It's just, we're so aligned that way. And I'm 56 and I'm changed my whole life, and I'm just knowing the next phase is like going to be the best for me. Like,
oh, you have a whole second adulthood. Yes, you do.
Thank you. And you're such an inspiration and such a powerful light. Like, so the dream proposal, like, it's just brilliant. I'm just listening going, this is all so brilliant. And I love what you've done for these women. It's incredible. It's just like, so, and then when did you write the book?
Well, that's a story in itself. I closed down Web of Benefit in 2016. And we had thought to merge with another nonprofit. But what Web of Benefit did was so unique. One thing that I had decided at the very beginning was I was never going to take any public money, no government money. So I just took private money, but also corporation money and foundation money that allowed me to do what I wanted to do. So I could give a grant, and I did. I have given many grants in like 2 hours to get a woman out of the state if her abuser just got out of prison. One woman with 5 kids had moved into a Section 8 apartment and had the down payment guaranteed to her by an agency that fell through. The 5 kids and the mom were back together again after they had been shunted away into various other towns. They were going to lose that apartment by 5 o'clock that afternoon. And I got a call at noon. She came to the office with her advocate, and I gave her the check that moment to take to the landlord. But anyway,
The book.
I think I just had the faith that what I was doing was needed and necessary, and the way showed itself. There were a couple months I had to stop giving grants because we ran out of funds, but I still took names and numbers and we had them in order. And there were years that I was donating way too much of my own money, but I'm a quick learner and I'm a hard worker. And I was really, really committed. My big dream, by the way, and nobody in my life had ever asked me what my dream was. How many people have asked you what your dream is?
Yeah.
No, not too many. But anyway, my dream was to give $1,000 to 100 women. And it turned out to be 2,200 women. Wow. So I also suggest that you write down a dream proposal now that you know how to do it and stick it on your refrigerator and look at it. And I think you know you deserve it, but remember that you deserve it. And you'll be really surprised.
Yeah, I really have been digging deep into the worthiness thing recently with the new book by Jamie Kernlima, Worthy. It was like, oh, this is it. This is the last piece.
Yeah.
This is significant. This is why, I mean, my dad would walk around and say he was worthless about himself. And my mother protected me for the last couple plus years. So I think there's definitely been a giant worthiness thing for me. And then just learning that I'm worthy just for being alive and breathing is something that I also learned recently in some of my coaching communities, spiritual coaching communities, and it's just powerful. But yeah, the subconscious beliefs around everything, that's
right. I think our sense of unworthiness, which is a core belief, I am unworthy. Nobody loves me. I'm unlovable.
not good enough.
There are probably 30 core beliefs that we all live with, positive or negative, but those core beliefs are what create our patterns of behavior.
Right.
So your core belief, I am unworthy, all of a sudden, I don't deserve the love of my life. I don't deserve the job that I know I can do.
Right.
I don't deserve to be loved. And our behavior stems from our core beliefs. So I think it's really important that even maybe before a person does a dream proposal, write down 2 columns, negative core beliefs, positive core beliefs, and check those negative ones and say, who told me that? Where did that come from? And that's not based in reality. How come somebody else gets to tell me what my beliefs are?
Exactly.
And of course, self-forgiveness, really. I want to go back just a second to the book, because the book was about 10 years in writing. And I started it, and then I knew when I stopped Web of Benefit and didn't have the grants to give that I wanted to be able to somehow further what I had been doing, even without the money. So that's the book. But it took 10 years. It was really, now when I read a book, it's like, oh my God, I have so much more appreciation.
Yeah.
But it took a long time. And chapter 2 is about various kinds of abuse. That was the most difficult chapter. But the rest of it, lots of women's stories, and there are 5 stories in there that survivors wrote in their own words.
Mm-hmm.
And if you buy the book or get the book, those 5 stories are incredible.
Okay. Yeah. I'm excited. I think it's sounds like an amazing guide and journal and book to lead people, because I always teach with my coaching, we are not our minds, we are not our bodies. We're spiritual, energetic beings having a human experience. So we get to decide, we get to program the mind.
Right. Right.
And that's why, some people were raised in homes where they were told, you're amazing, you can do, be, and have anything you desire. And, just put your mind to it and go
Right.
for it, be consistent and and you'll have it. And they were raised that way, right?
That would have been nice, right?
That would have been nice. That was an advantage that you and I didn't have.
Right.
And those people turned out, they had, you can tell, but the fact that we overcame and then created what we're creating and you've done is so incredible and so beautiful and powerful. Is your own personal story with your relationship in the book too, or no? Do you share?
Yes, there's part of my story in the book.
So do you have, I assume, it's just not that we should ever assume, but I'm assuming that you had intimate terrorism in not just your growing up home, but in your own relationships.
No, I was very lucky. I did not. I had some other minor abuse in emotional and psychological, but no physical stuff.
Oh,
I was pretty sure that that was not going to happen to me. I'm just um, enough of a,
yeah.
I don't know. I was very lucky.
Yeah.
I'm tough enough not to put up with any of that crap.
Yeah.
But,
So tell us, It Takes a Woman. So where did the name come from?
well, when I started working with women and empowering women, I asked, and it was later in the years, I asked a friend who is a writer to help me with a title. And she thought about it and she got back to me and she said, well, it's going to be about women, right? And I said, yeah, it's going to be about what I did at Web of Benefit and their stories. And she said, well, I've been thinking that we could call It Takes a Woman, because it took you to start Web of Benefit. So she came up with the It Takes a Woman, and then I came up with To Empower Women, and then the Guide to Survivors, and that we're all survivors.
Yeah, we are.
From. And I have to tell you, I had the most wonderful writing coach and the most wonderful editors on the planet. Just the best.
Yeah, I actually was in a best-selling book course and I started writing a book, but I'm a long way down the road. But so you had a coach, a writer's coach?
I had a writing coach, and I can let you know her name if you ever want to know it. But she forced me to write a chapter a month, and she got me on the fast track.
Nice. So the book can be found anywhere, right? At the bookstore?
Yeah, it's Amazon, Barnes and Noble. There's an ebook on Apple and Audible.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
Okay. And then, so you've got the dream proposal, the survivor stories, the journal prompts, the invitations to self-care, the countless affirmations, which I love to use affirmations. That's how we reprogram the subconscious.
Right.
And then the self-care is so gigantic too. That's just, oh my goodness, so huge in this world that we live in, because if you're depleted, you can't do anything for anybody, right? And yeah, there's so much here. Is there anything else you want to share with who were some of your mentors along the way in your life that you said you've been working the spirituality for the last 35 years and things like that? What were there any specific books or like who do you?
Well, I have to tell you that Brene Brown and Glennon Doyle.
Yeah.
Glennon Doyle's book Untamed is a must.
Yeah.
Brene Brown's,
Yeah, Glennon Doyle's badass.
I can't remember the title, about self-forgiveness.
Yeah.
And then Gloria Steinem,
Mm-hmm.
who was the number one feminist when I was growing up,
Mm-hmm.
has some also in the book. There are sections called wise words, which are quotations from these ladies, plus many more.
Mm.
And Gloria Steinem said, "We do not live in a patriarchy. The patriarchy lives in us." And if you think about that, it's really scary. And she also said she has a book out that's nothing but her quotations, which is lots of fun. And if this is inappropriate to say on the podcast, I apologize in advance. But she said, "If they call me bitch, I say thank you."
It's not inappropriate. And thank you. Yeah, no.
And then my last really fun quote, and I don't even know where it comes from, but it's not from me. It's no is a complete sentence.
Mm-hmm. That's probably Glennon Doyle or something. Or Brene Brown. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have to have boundaries. Like
Yeah.
it's so wild. I've been doing this work for a while and I'll still in my daily life feel something and go, what is this? This is like something showing up from,
Oh, yeah. It's a new
I-
lesson, a
yeah,
new lesson.
I always talk about becoming the observer of your life and
Mm.
noticing your thoughts and your actions, obviously. There is a podcast I would love to have you explore being on. Her name's Kara Lowenthal, and she has a new book called Take Back Your Brain, How a Sexist Society Gets in Your Head and How to Get It Out. And I think I'll send you an email reminding you of
Oh,
this.
that would be super.
I really want you to go on her show because she's literally a feminist and she's written this badass book recently and I have it and I'm going to get your book too. I think I'm going to get your book as a gift for some people. I've had a couple guests that were intimate terror. I love that. Intimate terrorism. That's a great new way of saying it because
Right.
it truly is that. But anyway, this has been amazing. You've done such beautiful work and such powerful work and oh my gosh, just transforming 2,200 women's lives is just incredible.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Yeah, thank you. No, thank you for what you're doing. And yeah, we have more power than we know. We have more power than we know. And it's like the victim mindset is a program. And I used to have it, I know. So we get to take control of our lives, and that's what your book is all about.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. It's been a pleasure meeting you, and we will stay connected. And I'm going to get the book, and I'll put all your links in the show notes. And thank you again for being here.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for listening to today's episode. It means so much to me that you're here. I know you have many options of things to listen to. If you did enjoy today's show, please share with someone you think would benefit. I would love to grow this audience and help as many people as I can. Also, leaving a review means so much to me. I would love it if you could leave a review. I hope you have a blessed day and live empowered. If you're looking for a coach, lindabrandcoach.com. You can find me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, all the places. Take care, everybody.